What's up, everybody? This is Caesar coming straight from the underground where we're innovating. And why are we innovating? Because we're closest to the problem and stand to benefit significantly from obtaining a solution to that problem. And what's our problem? Trying to validate business ideas in resource constraint environments. And boy, today I got a good one for you. So, if you're a first time entrepreneur or you're an engineer or technical manager trying to validate a business idea, trying to find product market fit, or optimize resources, you're working in a resource constraint environment. And big businesses win because they know how to structure and execute and deliver value to their end user. They also know how to optimize resources and scale systems of systems. So today we're going to talk about system of value delivery, what it is and how it can give you a competitive edge. This just isn't theory, it's practical application. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, at its core, every business is trying to deliver value, but the way that they structure their execution determines their success. So, I went ahead and broke down the system of value delivery at a high level concept. So, if we take a systems view, there's always an input into the system of value delivery to deliver some level of outcome. Now, a system of value delivery is essentially a container. And think about it as the operating system. It provides the architecture, but how it's configured depends on the strategy of your business. So it's not necessarily just a fixed model. Right here, we have it in a framework, but it can be interchangeable and adaptable depending on your business goals and objectives. But you have to remember that a system doesn't operate in isolation. So depending on the environment allows you to be able to really determine how to structure and how the actual system of value is shaped. So the outside forces of the environment that you're dealing in always happen to shape the actual system of value delivery. So let's go ahead and take a look at what external and internal forces actually allow you or affect the value of systems delivery. So whenever it comes to external forces, you're thinking of things like market trends or competition. Economic shifts can also impact your system of value delivery or your regulatory changes. In addition to that, technological advancements can also impact the way that your system of value delivery is set up. Essentially, all of these external and internal forces allow you to be able to determine the inputs into that actual system, how to shape it, and then what type of system of value or what it will prioritize. It also determines whether your system is going to succeed or not, depending on how you perceive these external or internal forces. Now, whenever it comes to internal forces, we have things like leadership decisions or how our organization is structured, what our employee capabilities are, or our company culture. So, as I mentioned, not designing with these forces in mind put you at risk of creating a system of value that doesn't even align with reality. So, just keep that in mind whenever you're trying to create your own system of value. So, how do we structure these systems of value in order based off of the business goals? So, that's a fantastic question. Whenever it comes to different domains, they have different goals depending on what their approach are. Now, in the previous video, we've talked about operations, we've talked about product, and we've talked about project, what their goals are and how they interconnect into everything. Whenever it comes to a system of value delivery, we can take that certain approach in order to be able to customize our business goals and our technical management approach to be able to deliver that outcome. So, for example, when you're dealing with product management, you're going to take a product centered approach whenever it comes to system of value delivery. Now, it would be in the form more of a customer value delivery where you're more interested in your customer, what their needs are, or your customer's customer, and then you're more concerned with meeting those user needs and building something that allows you to be able to deliver that value. When you take it from the perspective of an operational lens, you're dealing more with process efficiency and you're thinking more about how you can scale, how you can optimize workflows, and that's the container that you use in order to be able to deliver value on that aspect. Now, going back to project, in a previous video, we talked about project management deals with execution. Now, understanding how to set up your projects in order to be able to deliver value through execution is extremely important, and to be able to achieve specific business objectives within a certain time frame. Now, in all reality, there's always going to be a mix of these different types of approaches. It may not always be one, but depending on the domain, will allow you to be able to understand how to properly set up these actual systems of value delivery. A hybrid approach just takes all of these types of approaches and delivers across the operational or determines operational excellence or strategic projects or whatever the business objective is. Like I mentioned, the business objective is really what determines how you actually structure your system of value delivery. In addition to that, whenever you find your system of value delivery, you can take the proper management approach in order to be able to deliver that value. So, how does this work at scale? And what does it look like when we actually set up a system of value delivery for an actual business? So, let's go ahead and take a look at this next slide. So here I went ahead and broke this down into a system of value delivery at an organizational level. I went ahead and named it an organization value delivery because this is actually concerned with trying to figure out how we can take a business goal and deliver value on it. So as you can see, this is framed in a system of value delivery. Going back to that high level idea, a system of value delivery is essentially a container that allows all of these different processes, all these different objectives to be able to deliver some level of outcome. That's the first thing that we defined. Now here, like I mentioned, whenever you create an organization that is focused on delivering value, going back to the previous slide right here, you may have a mix of these different types of outcomes. For example, you may have a product-centric system of value, or an operational-centric system of value, or a project-centric system of value, all combined into one large system. So you have to really take into consideration what your approach is and set up systems of systems in order to be able to deliver that value. Here, like I mentioned, we define our business goals. So for example, if your business goal is to expand into 20% into a new market by the end of the Q4, that would be your business goals. You would break down your OKRs, your objective key results, which we can go into in another video. But after you have your OKRs, you could determine your initiatives. And like I mentioned, I structured this particular example in the form of a project management approach. That's the approach that I took in order to be able to visualize it. Whenever you define your initiatives, you can start breaking them down into portfolios in order to be able to help you manage those more effectively. In those portfolios, you'd have a mix of projects and products, and depending on the interconnectedness, you may have a program that helps you define it. Now, like I mentioned, depending on the outcome, you would more or less determine the management approach and then move forward with the value that you're delivering. As I mentioned, these are all systems of systems to be able to feed back into the actual business goal to be able to achieve that business goal. So essentially, this organizational value delivery system is focused on delivering value at a business level and execution. Now, let's go back to really thinking about the value of this particular framework. Now that we have everything broken down into systems of value, we can determine essentially we can effectively manage our resources. So if we know that we have a portfolio that's focused on digital transformation, and we only have a certain amount of time from developers, and the priority is high, we can start fitting in and timing the work that needs to be done with those specific programmers. Versus product 2, it's not necessarily a priority, and product 3 is low priority at the moment. We can start optimizing our resource management, going back to what I was talking about earlier, how big businesses are able to effectively utilize resources. And then when you structure your organization into a system of value delivery, emergent things can start happening. Like I mentioned, you start seeing this at a high level, and then you can start deriving things like roadmaps. You can start deriving things like um, Gantt charts, as well as start tracking things for efficiency. Now, going more into the micro level, coming back over here, like I was mentioning, we can start determining the actual management approach. So, for example, if the system of value delivery is set up to deliver customer value, well, then we know that we would take a product management approach where we would follow a discovery, design, um, build, test, launch, a more methodology, versus if we're taking a project approach, it may follow a waterfall methodology. Now, this is a really great way to more or less visualize a system of value delivery. Like I mentioned, going back to our first slide, this slide really defines it more at a high level. And the argument that I'm trying to make here is thinking of a system of value delivery as more of a mental model, right? It's, you have to determine the inputs, you have to understand the outputs, and then depending on the environment, the structure, the approach, you start using this system of value to be able to define something that helps you execute, or depending on your goals, align it with your goals. It just acts as a container in order to be able to help you deliver that value to whether it's a stakeholder, end user, in a certain type of environment and whatnot. So now that we understand that, let's go ahead and go back to a concept that I introduced in the previous video. The project and operational in the product lifecycle. So now these are very two different ways of really understanding and visualizing things. They take very similar concepts, but they help you expand your way of thinking, right? So, what I have before you is more or less deriving strategy based off of a product life cycle. So, as you can see right here, this helps you really understand early operations, setting up the infrastructure, and then scaling it with respect to your actual product development or your product lifecycle. Now, the big takeaway here is both the system of value model and the product lifecycle will help your business visualize execution, whereas this particular model will allow you to be able to understand it through the product's lifecycle, which projects you need to set up, and then how an operation scales in a long time. Really, really great for setting up your innovation strategy long term and down the road. Whereas we take a look over here, back to our organizational value delivery, this allows you to be able to see the structure of your company at the highest level. This also will help you build a strategy in the long term, because it now helps you understand all these different components, all the systems of systems, and how your business is actually delivering value. Whereas the product lifecycle will help you visualize where you need to start inserting different products in the long term to be able to manage it through these different lifecycle phases, which is important because this can also always inform your business goals and your strategy in the long term. And then, like I mentioned, going back to your organizational value delivery system, this allows you to be able to see it at that high level. It's like opening up an engine and really seeing all the components. Whereas this is the GPS, the destination. How are you going to get over, let's say, this particular aspect of the journey or this particular aspect of the journey? You're visualizing more of the strategy, whereas this allows you to be able to visualize more of the components and systems of value delivery. So that's pretty much it. Like I mentioned, really just understanding that system of value is such a high level concept. It really takes more of an input and output. It's the container that allows your business to be able to operate and deliver value. Really understanding the external and internal forces that drive delivery, because this is going to determine how your system of value is set up and how it interacts. Systems don't operate in isolation. External and internal forces will eventually shape how your system of value is delivered. Now, different domains have different goals, and setting up a system of value delivery is super important whenever it comes to whatever your goals as a business are, and it's modular. And then also you can bring them all together to create a hybrid approach. Just like an organizational value delivery, you can structure it in a project-centric management style where you utilize portfolios, projects, products, and then utilize a different approach depending on your goal. That creates systems of systems that allow you to be able to deliver that system of value, and it always aligns back to your business goals. And then lastly, understanding that all of these are interconnected, right? Projects, products, and operations are always interconnected. Seeing it through the life cycle of through a product lens will help you visualize that product life cycle and how these all interact together. Whereas seeing it through a project lens will help you see the systems of systems that allow you to be able to execute in the long term. So system of value delivery isn't a new concept, but understanding how to utilize it in your startup or in a resource constrained environments will help you compete with those Fortune 500 companies and those big businesses. So let's take a recap and think about it this way. Like I mentioned, I presented it into a form of a mental model so that way you can see it at its highest level, really understanding that inputs and outputs are really important. And then the system of value delivery is essentially just the container that allows you to be able to deliver on those outputs. Now, understanding the internal, external factors will allow you to ultimately shape the actual system of value delivery. And then, really, depending on your approach, whether you're coming from a project manager lens, product manager lens, or operations manager lens, will allow you to be able to determine what value you're delivering to your end user or stakeholder in order to be able to pick the proper management approach. Lastly, bring it all together in an organization to be able to deliver value really determines your business or your success as a business. Aligning it with your business goals and creating a hybrid approach that allows you to be able to deliver value through a project lens, a product lens, and an operational lens, and utilizing systems of systems in order to be able to repeat that value you're delivering to your customers is extremely important. And lastly, it's interconnected to the product life cycle and the way that you manage it, because operations, project, and products are all interconnected, whereas the product lifecycle allows you to be able to manage the product through these various levels, allowing you to be able to utilize it for high level strategy and determine when to utilize projects, when to scale up operations. Whereas a systems of value delivery allows you to be able to take a look at what's under the hood and set up the structures, the systems of systems, to be able to allow for emergent properties like the ability to be able to track KPIs, to create roadmaps, or to be able to develop Gantt charts at the highest level to make sure you meet your business goals. So understanding that will allow you to be able to compete. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you haven't hit that like button already, just go ahead and hit it now, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.